Welcome to the Matthew Moran podcast. Here you will find a series of in-depth conversations with the world's best nature photographers, filmmakers, conservationists, editors, writers, and publishers. You will get an insight into the lives of creative professionals and industry experts. It is a chance to hear their stories, personal journeys, and how they carve a niche to make a living. The podcast focuses on the role that photography and filmmaking plays in helping to raise awareness about the global plight of species, and despite the depressing statistics, we look for solutions of what we can all do to contribute to conservation. All my guests give up their precious time and are incredibly generous of spirit, so this is my chance to share these conversations with you, so sit back, relax, and enjoy. This week, my guest is Sandra Bartocha. Sandra is a multi-award-winning nature photographer, multimedia presenter, bookmaker, and self-proclaimed lover of light. From early on in her career, Sandra wanted to do things differently. Deeply inspired by Jim Brandenburg, she moved away from the formulaic methods of pin-sharp, hallelujah-like landscape photography to focus on capturing the mood of a place and to evoke an emotional response. Her style is certainly unique and has brought her great success over the years in many of the top nature photography competitions. She was a contributing photographer on the Wild Wonders of Europe initiative and was also commissioned to photograph a 20th anniversary edition book for Müritz National Park in northern Germany. In this second interview during the COVID lockdown, I caught up with Sandra in her hometown in northern Germany to talk about her approach to photography, how she avoids being pigeonholed, and the challenge to continue to create beautiful and innovative work. If you enjoyed this interview, please share it with your friends and family, leave a review on iTunes. We're on a host of other platforms including Stitcher, Acast, Google Play, and more. That's enough from me. Enjoy the show. Sandra, thank you so much for taking the time to be on the podcast. And before the pandemic, I used to be really precious about only doing interviews face to face and wanted to be truly authentic. But my hand has been forced, and maybe for the better. It's going to open up a whole new world of opportunities and guests and possibilities, even though it's more time in front of a computer, but could well do without. But this is really exciting, and been wanting to get you on the podcast for a long time and been following your work for years, and really excited to have you here. I just wanted to find out how you've been doing during the uncertain times and what have you been up to?
So thank you first for the invitation. I'm an avid listener of your podcast and a big fan. So I'm more than happy to be one of your guests today. And for your question, actually, I've been great. I'm like, of course, there's different perspectives on this, but in general, this time has served me great because many of us have probably fallen back into kind of not able to do the normal rush. And so I think from my perspective, I had the most time I've ever had in the past years. So I finally did some photography again. And in Germany, we had a quite soft lockdown. So I'm always comparing it that I mean, like, because people of course are even complaining about what we had, but we were allowed to do anything except for meeting people. So as a nature photographer, it's quite easy to not meet people and to just venture out. And so we could go, and I could go whenever and wherever I wanted to go, and especially in the county where I'm originating. We didn't allow even other counties from Germany to visit. So that was great because all the huge tourist attractions at the sea were completely empty, and the beaches were empty, and all the places. And actually, nature and wildlife were great. And I mean, like, of course, you won't wish for economical reasons that it stays like that, because, of course, people need to live from something here. But from a perspective of just enjoying the outside and nature, it was a brilliant time.
That is superb. And You've always done work close to home. You've traveled, of course, and we're going to talk about your book a little bit later, in the north, in Scandinavia. But you live quite close to a big lake where you've been doing a lot of photography. Is that right?
Yeah, it's right. To the Tullensee and to the Müritz, and the Baltic Sea is not far away. So I mean, like, you're exactly right. My work has always been, circling around regional topics, and Lys was a completely different experience for me. So now it's a little bit like going back to the roots, and I enjoyed it more than ever. I mean, like, really having so much time, and really deliberately taking the time to even rediscovering the area I grew up, and rediscovering more places, because I mean, like, nothing is ever the same. I mean, it's not only that landscape is changing. Of course, landscape is changing, forests are changing, but the seasons and the time of the day, and of course, me as a photographer, I have improved over the years, or sharpened my vision in other directions. So I mean, like, it will never. I mean, like, I will never get tired of anything that's around here.
And it's such a big lesson. And I think even before the pandemic, something comes out quite regularly from these podcasts is the importance of access and knowing the location really well, knowing the environment really well, like the back of your hand. There's no secret. This is how photographers end up getting the best work, is having access and not putting up too many barriers, like flying lots and going to places that are really hard to reach. The risk of sounding like a broken record, it's so important to do stuff close to home. And I like what you said about sharpening up. I really feel that with photography, you really have to practice a lot to keep getting better at, and you get more and more critical about your work. So it sounds like it's been a really great time for you. And can we expect to see a whole new portfolio of work from this lockdown period? Did you set yourself tasks, or did you just go out and shoot?
I mean, like, I have a ever running task, actually, that I already started before I went with a project about Scandinavia, and I've never finished that. And so my idea was actually to make a book just before, but I never managed because I'm a perfectionist, and sometimes it will never finish because I'm just working on it, and I'm still working on it, but I have so many new ideas, and not only new ideas, but like now it's not only one book, but maybe four, and maybe I mean, like, it's just too much sometimes, so that I will never be able to finish anything. But it's not just random photography, that's for sure. But I cannot promise anything very clear.
Sure. Well, you've done this huge book on Scandinavia. It's 4 years in the making, and I've published books too, and similar length of time to produce them. And when you have the idea of doing 4 or 5 more books, can become a lifetime's worth of work.
Yeah, it's more like a series. I mean, like, what I'm really a little bit tired about, and this is not only me, or my own experience, but this is something that I see from other people too. I mean, like, it's not that I'm fond of the way of. I mean, like, I like working on projects, because it gives you focus. Um, so a focus is always important to create some outstanding work. I mean, I'm a strong believer in that. But on the other hand, I'm a little bit tired of this typical. I mean, like, I remember that when I finished Lys, and I think when the first presentation after the premiere, kind of, in 2016, it's already 4 years ago. But the first question was, "So what's your next project?" And I thought, what the fuck? I'm sorry. But I'm like, this is, I'm like, I just finished this. I'm like, I've been working for 4 years on this and 1 year of production. What do you want? Of course, there are photographers who have thousands of ideas for projects and animals they want to capture the behavior or whatever. So, but I think my whole life is a project. So, I mean, my photography is not so project related in general. It's not that now I'm finished with Scandinavia. Now I'm going to Spain and do the same. I mean, like in this way. I mean, like I just don't want to keep doing 4 years of project and then having 1 year of bookmaking and everything, and then having 3 years. I mean, like we have 3 years of a marketing phase behind us, and so. I mean, like for me, it's much more important to find a balance where I can do projects or little projects, or just like my like directed photography uh, in direction from an artistic standpoint, but also from a financial standpoint. And this is for me hard enough, because I think that the artistic standpoint is very often kind of challenged by the thinking of an agency, or like images that sell. So I think it's hard enough to concentrate on projects or on an artistic expression in a general life.
I'm so glad you mentioned that, and actually that's something that I wanted to talk about. And something that comes up regularly is this idea of how to make a living from being a nature photographer. I myself, especially during this lockdown, has really struggled. I run workshops, I do speaking events, all of which were cancelled, of course. And yeah, I'm not the only one, but you really start wrestling with this idea of, what am I doing? Am I trying to get commissions? Am I trying to sell prints? Am I trying to make books? It's really easy to lose sight of being creative and doing work that has art and has meaning when you're constantly thinking about, how am I going to pay my bills? And I ask all the photographers on this podcast how they do make a living and how they find that balance between doing personal projects and doing paid projects and commissions and making prints. And how do you find the time to work on all the different elements to make sure you're satisfied financially and creatively?
I mean, I must say that I mean, like first of all, most important for me was always that I'm diversifying, that I'm having as little as overhead as possible. So I mean, like I really don't want to be in a situation where I'm having a big lifestyle and cannot pay any of my bills. So that's the reason why I always kept it very low. And the diversify, of course, I mean, like Corona hit a lot of workshop people because they were completely killed immediately, and they're just starting now again. I mean, like I can't say that Corona has done me well because I have no income right now, and in opposite to many others who have tried to digitalize their offers. For me, I mean, like I've spoken to Theo Bosboom very shortly about like a Corona print sale, and I mean, like we exchanged some ideas and messages, and after 2-3 days, we just came to a conclusion that, my God, this is a lot of engagement again, and it's almost a little bit embarrassing to use the situation for this. So, of course, as a photographer, I mean, like you have to have a little bit of like money in order to survive a certain time of like when you maybe not have an income, and that's the way it is right now. And I just hope that certain things pick up again. I'm actually, really honestly, I'm actually not doing anything in order to change the situation right now. I just hope, and maybe this is because I've never been really proactive in acquisition of jobs. They have always been there. I mean, like people invited me, people have been like asking me to do these things, and especially because I'm having such a diverse income, I'm very seldom doing workshops, very special workshops about bookmaking or like larger projects. And some of those are cancelled because of too less participants, because there's a fear of people having in a seminar room. So people have fear of staying together with people even now. And so I really don't know. I mean, like maybe in August I have to really start thinking about something to change the situation. But right now I'm still enjoying the like post-corona kind of economical situation. And in general, it's like, especially speaking from a photographic standpoint, for me it's sometimes really difficult to see what is more important. Like when I'm speaking about artistic expression, if I'm concentrating purely on this, because I'm invited as a speaker because of my artistic expression, not because of my calendar images. And sometimes when I'm in the field, I'm completely a kind of, I can't even explain it. It's more like that I'm having this sort of, I have to produce this classic shot now because I can sell this to a calendar agency, or to give it to NPL, or I mean, like, of course images are at NPL, but I'm like, it's not as much money that it kind of um, is the excuse for me not concentrating on my artistic vision. And sometimes my artistic vision is completely clouded by these thoughts, which is totally stupid. Of course, I sell to calendars, postcards, and everything, but the other thing is so much more important. And I really have to concentrate on saying, now I really have to take care, not taking the standard shots, but making my mind free for from my vision. But in most of the cases, I must say, I mean, like for Lys, we did know that from the beginning it was a concentration on our expression, and there were never any economical thoughts behind it. So that was very that was very good in terms of your own concentration in the field. And right now, I have the feeling that I'm always trying to balance this a little bit, because if the situation is very obvious, then I take the classic shot. And then after taking the classic shot, I'm starting to delve more um, into my own stuff. That's not easy to sell. Not easy, like almost not possible to sell at all.
That's so funny. It really sounds like you have to wear these two different hats when you're in the field. Switching from one to the other is, it's not so easy. We mentioned Lys 3 times already, and we shouldn't assume everybody knows about it. And it's been 4 years since you published this book, but maybe you could tell the listeners very briefly about this project, and we can certainly put some links into your page on the podcast section about this book, and let people know about it and possibly buy it if it's still available.
Yes, it is. We just reprinted last year. So I mean, it originated in an idea that Werner Bollmann, a good friend of me, had in 2011, and it actually based on the idea that I was photographing very much regional, and people were kind of reducing me to the flower photographer, and the one that is just doing this like regional stuff. And the idea was really to gain more. I'm like, of course, I love Scandinavia. I've been hiking there a lot, and the idea was still to say, "Hey, come on, take me serious, because I'm able to stand minus 40 degrees and hard winds as well." So I mean, like, that was just a little bit a funny idea, but the idea was nevertheless to have a project, working on it 3-4 years, and cover the whole north on an emotional level, like in a very intimate view on it. No hotspots, no famous beaches, no famous animals or something, but just to characterize the essential spirit of the north, and that from the south of Denmark up to Svalbard. And we've been working 4 years in the field and have been producing a book during all these travels, because we never wanted to come home after 4 years and just spread all our images on the floor and say, "Oh, we missed something." Um, so I mean, like, we really, the book actually brought us forward in the field, because sometimes we designed some pages and thought, oh, we need this kind of images as a story link or as a link to this chapter, and let's find this kind of images, and this resulted in.
So you were designing the books as you went along. You were able to see where the gaps were.
Yes, absolutely. I mean, like we really we started immediately on our first travel to design the book, and of course we didn't do it chronological. So all our travels were, I'm like, sometimes we were in February in the north, and then again worked on the forest chapter, and then again the next year went again to the far north or to the coast, and so it developed on different levels. So we never started one chapter and finished this at once. Um, but for example, I remember that the forest chapter was kind of ready, but we missed an opener because it started with a double spread with two small images of details of the forest, and that was very beautiful. But it didn't serve as an opener for such a big chapter as a tiger forests in Scandinavia, and. And then we were photographing 2 weeks only forests, like from morning to evening, to find this one picture that served as an opener.
So were you making these editorial decisions yourself, or did you enlist the help of an editor?
In that case, we didn't use an editor. I mean, like maybe it's hubris, but I'm like, I think that Werner and me, we were quite good in challenging each other. I mean, like, I think I myself would have always asked for help, and if not an editor, then for sure friends that I'm relying on in perspective. Um, but what was really important that Werner and me, we discussed many times all the chapters, and I always say we had 4 years of editing, and not only in finding new images for a chapter or something, but I mean, like, so many double spreads have been in and then out the next on the next travel, because after 3 months it had lost his fascination. I mean, like, it really had time to grow and really time to set, and we showed it in progress to many of our highly valued friends. And I'm like, for me, it was very valuable to hear very different opinions about this. I mean, like, it's not that we took into account every opinion, but I think that the whole set of opinions gave us a very good feedback, how to proceed and maybe what to be even more sure of. So for me, the process was perfect, but I know that not every project can have such a long editing phase. But in most of the times, honestly, I think that many books, when speaking of books of photographers, I think many of the books are not well thought of. They try to put in too much and too many different things. And one thing that we wanted to make sure that we don't have any repetition, that we don't have redundancy, that everything that is in there serves a reason in a way, um, and that we don't fall into this trap of just adding something because we think it's so beautiful. We have done many beautiful pictures that aren't in the book just because it didn't serve the story or the flow or anything. And I think that the risk of many photographers that are too attached to their images is to put too much in, like, and I think that people, if they are um, like flipping through a book, they get tired because you just have beautiful, and don't get changes of rhythm and don't get changes of emotion, and you are just filled up like if you ate too much candy in a way.
I think that's such an important message for anyone making a book. It sounds like you're also an editor, and it's a really valuable skill. Not all photographers are the best editors of their own work.
Yeah.
But the more ruthless you are with your selection, the stronger your end product is going to be. And I like that you said that, when you set out with this book with Werner, you were having conversations from the very beginning and scrutinizing every decision. And obviously you have to be happy at the end of the day. So there's no room for filler. Every image has to serve a purpose.
Yeah, absolutely. And I really enjoyed the process of being still in the field while knowing that we are missing something. Because otherwise it just fills up with something.
So you've done a reprint. That's exciting. So How many did you print in the first run?
We did print 2,000 in the first run, and we were, a little bit overwhelmed because we are both not marketing professionals. So, of course, in all, if you travel Scandinavia, you have quite a long time that you are sitting in cars, and I know that I filled thousands of lists with things that we wanted to do when the book is out, and whom we wanted to contact, but we are really not brilliant marketers. So the campaign, the pre-starting campaign was already a lot of work for us. And then when the book came out, I spent just weeks in the basement and sending out books. And I know that people were saying to me, why didn't you take a student? But then I'm a perfectionist again. And many of the people who order a book know you and know me, and I know them. And, adding a personal message or a personal postcard because I know the person and I know that this person like that or this. And, they were all handled very gently by me. And
I really understand that. And of course, to be involved at every stage, to processing the images, to editing, to the designing, and of course you want to select the packaging, all the details, where you're going to place the label, are you going to do it by hand? It can be a bit of a problem being a perfectionist. I had a similar issue, but I also had my mum helping me out when I was shipping all my Hampstead Heath books. People think, oh, you should be doing something more important, but this is important. Every little detail really is important. Those special notes and, open up a book that's beautifully packaged the way you want. And you're the best person and best place to do that. But sometimes, yeah, it can take up too much time.
Of course, when people ask me if self-publishing worth it, and I always say, of course, if you sell, we have sold 2,000 books and we've reprinted, but we've only reprinted 500 because we had exhibitions coming up and we didn't have any books anymore. So we had to reprint in order to be able to sell books during these exhibitions. And in the end, of course, you have to be clear about it. We had 3 years or almost 4 years in the field, but I can honestly say that I had 3 years in the office as well. In the office preparing exhibitions, sending out these books. And even if it calms down, in the first weeks you send out a lot of books until you fulfilled all your orders. But then, of course, then there's Christmas and a new book are coming. And then you have an exhibition, and during the exhibition, I remember that it was already 2 years after the premiere, in 2018, and we had a big exhibition in the north of Germany, and that exhibition was very well received by the press as well. So we had some TV footage and so on, and I was driving home from the opening and having a lot of tons of orders of books of people who have seen it in the TV, and I was just rushing back from the exhibition opening in order to fulfill the orders. So there are times involved in self-publishing, and you know that, which are so busy that you almost can't breathe. So there's definitely a downtime or a downside to self-publishing, especially when you are a perfectionist, and especially when you are somebody like me who wants to control the whole process. But then on the other hand, except for the first few weeks where you had regular fulfillment, you can't plan for anybody else to do it, because if you get 3-4 orders a week, you can't employ somebody for that. So.
Of course, yeah. You have to be the master of all jobs. It's brilliant. But I wanted to just briefly jump back because I'm really interested in this, and I'm sure the listeners are as well. And I know you became really well known as this plant photographer, and I know it became your Achilles heel, and we can talk a little bit more about this. But I wondered how you got into photography in the first place, and who were your influences and mentors, and or maybe you still have mentors right now. But it'd be good to find out a little bit about the early days and how you got into photography.
Yeah, I think, for me, photography was always apparent because my dad was a photographer at a newspaper. Um, and we grew up in East Germany, and he was really a photojournalist for the ADN Zentralbild, like for the kind of news agency in East Germany, and he picked me up from kindergarten quite often to take me with him on assignments. And I knew this is cool. I liked this traveling, and I liked being out in the field with him and doing these assignments. In complete opposite to my mom's job, which was an office job. So, but I mean, like, it's probably still not for everybody, but because my brother is not interested in photography at all. So there has to be something inside that I catched by my dad. So that was an influence. But my dad is clearly a photographer who's focusing on human nature and on people and portraits and so on. And I was always more interested in nature. I was a scout, and I've been spending a lot of time. I grew up in a village, so I spent a lot of time in forests and fields and lakes and so on. And so I joined a local photo club quite early. And here in the region, like where I grew up in Neubrandenburg, there's a lot of very good nature photographers. Claudia Müller, who was part of the Wild Wonders of Europe project as well. She was kind of my mentor at that time. I'm like, because she and her boyfriend, they photographed landscapes and nature photography, and they definitely served as a mentor for me in the beginning for nature photography. They explained me everything about filters and lenses and whatever, but inspirational photography as well. At that time, they were traveling a lot in America and made these, like, really these classic landscapes that now everybody's so tired of. But at that time, it was very inspiring. And I remember when I was 18, I went to America as an au pair and spent 1 year in Minnesota. At a German host family, which was quite unsuccessful for my English. But I was at that time so bad in English that I was totally happy that I could just regularly speak with them. But it really didn't help. I think I only spoke English to the nanny and to the cleaning lady. And But it was interesting because they gave me Jim Brandenburg's 90-day journey, Chased by the Light, as a birthday present. And from then I was completely hooked. I mean, his way of like emotion in photography touched me really deeply already at that time with 18 years. And I was an avid reader of outdoor photographer and how to use the best tripod and lens and so on. And Jim Brandenburg gave me a completely different perspective on photography, and especially with that book of saying, it's not about every single beautiful image. It's about the whole story, and it's about the whole movement, and it's about the whole emotion that is involved. And yeah, I mean, like, since then, I'm probably the biggest Jim Brandenburg fan on the world. And I don't know. I mean, I really admire him and his work greatly, and so he's definitely my huge inspiration. And from there, of course, I can name a number of photographers whom I'm constantly inspired of.
Yeah, did you ever meet Jim Brandenburg?
Oh yes, oh yes. He even bought Lys.
Yes, that's the ultimate compliment.
Yeah, unfortunately, I should have given it to him.
Sandra, that makes you a terrible businesswoman. That means you're buying books for your audience.
Yes, that's true. No, but I met him quite often because in Germany he received the Fritz Steiniger Prize at the GDT, and he had several presentations already at our festival. So I mean, I really enjoy his presentations and his deeply emotional talks. So yeah, I'm a big fan.
That's so good, and it sounded like he really touched you with his photographs and his words, and that whole idea of finding a style and known for a certain style. And I think it's a wonderful thing. And of course, I look at photographers a lot most days. Unfortunately, Instagram seems to be the best place for accessing work very, very quickly, and it can be a bit of a problem it's the platform of choice, even though it's not the best way of viewing photography. But this is the platform that so many photographers are using, and you can really see styles evolving and changing. But you became renowned early on for shooting, plants in a really specific way and in a beautiful style, and had great success with it. And I know from reading interviews and briefly talking with you earlier, it became a bit of a problem for you because you became known for having all of the success in competitions such as the Wildlife Photographer of the Year, and you've wanted to change and move away from this. And how have you found it? And of course, I'm sure you don't begrudge having great success, but it's a shame when you're really pigeonholed in a certain style of photography.
Yeah, I mean, like it's especially funny when you enter competitions and then the organizers say, "Oh, I mean, like there are so many plant images like yours. It's so tiring." So,
Really, it should be the ultimate compliment, but really, it's like imitation is the sincerest form of flattery, I think, is the saying. But then it can also become a bit of a problem as well.
yeah, or they say there was nothing good in plants, and you think, "Oh, I've submitted 15 plants, so thank you." So, I mean, no, I mean, like honestly, I mean, I've never been searching for a style, and never even searching for a certain topic that is my niche in a way, or you say niche or something.
Well, yeah, we
Um,
say niche. Americans say niche.
okay. I like niche. I like niche much more. Um, so I've never been searching for it. I remember that I was still in the very beginning when it was shortly after Wild Wonders of Europe happened, and Rosamund Kidman Cox sent me an email with an invitation to speak at Wild Photos at that time, and she proposed to me, like in this invitation, that I'm like speaking about plant photography because this is seems to be my specialty. And I thought, oh my god, is it really like that? I mean, like it was almost like she was the first one hitting me with a stone on the head and saying, "You are known for that." I didn't know that, and I've not been looking for that. And in this respect, I must say it wasn't so hard or not even active procedure to move away. Lys was more, I mean, like we wanted to do a project, and if you start one, you just do it right, and you just take all your effort and your vision into that and developing this. But of course, it was not purely the idea of moving away from something. We just wanted to do this, and I'm still shooting plants occasionally. It's just that you yourself get tired, and I think that's the reason from the beginning. I'm always saying that I think I've never been really photographing completely in a classic way. I've always started to bring own um, my own yeah, feeling into it, and not only because of Jim Brandenburg, but because I was so tired of many photography, or of many photographers that I saw in exhibitions, like in a local environment, because they were just shooting just random stuff and invited to an exhibition opening, and you just go and see all this boring stuff. Yeah, I mean, like, and this always triggered me to go forward. And I think if you develop as a photographer, you develop quite naturally into a direction that you might haven't been expecting. So it was never actually moving away on purpose. If somebody asked me to do some flower shots, I will probably be able to easily provide them with that. It just that it's not my major interest anymore.
Yeah,
Um,
I understand that. It's so you made a conscious decision not to to go against the grain. Sounded like it was really authentic, and it was like you were photographing with feeling and passion rather than trying to be different.
Yeah, and I think this is what's the problem with many. I mean, like many people are just following, and this is the reason why I usually don't go workshops, because I'm so tired by people who are just wanting to repeat what others have done. And I mean, like I'm happily assisting people in learning how to photograph, how to use their camera in order to express their vision or to express a vision. But I'm not able to put my own opinions on other people, and I have more and more problems with this because I'm in search, I'm searching for my own expression. I'm searching for my own way of dealing with photography and life. And who am I to tell other people how they should do some things? So this is quite important to me that I'm not able to do this, or not able, but I don't want to do this.
Yeah, that's a really important message, and so important to have influencers, which is great, and it's very similar in the music industry. You ask great musicians who their influences were, and you can hear some of that sound in their work, but then they have their own take and their own feel and their own sound, on top of that. And I think it really takes time. We live in an age of instant gratification. When you hear, and I'm not surprised about the journey that you and Werner went on for Liss, it takes time, and it's a real process, and it takes a long time to find the stories that you want to tell, to express them in the way that you want to do it. It's really not easy to stand out from the crowd, especially in the age of social media.
Yeah, but the question is, you spoke about instant gratification, and I think that's part of the problem. Because, of course, in Instagram format, a classic landscape, I mean, like, I know so many people who are quite successful with kind of reposting a set of 10 images over and over and over again, and the crowd just applauds them for this, because each of these images might be in a classic way beautiful and breathtaking, but I'm like, this is what comes perfectly in this Instagram format. You need clear forms, you need strong colors, and whatever. But images that are very like textured or very very detailed or anything, I mean, like, they have no chance in that format. And I must say that, of course, I do social media, I do occasional Facebook, and I do my occasional Instagram upload, and I like watching stories, but actually not so much of nature photographers, but of other people. But even if I use this constantly, when I'm thinking of how and for what I'm producing my work, it's not Instagram. It's primarily, I mean, like, books is one part, but I'm always thinking of exhibitions as well. For me, an exhibition, and when I remember, we have this huge loose exhibition that is still touring, and it is 70 huge images. I mean, like, sometimes 1 meter 50 wide, and um, and it's joined by. I mean, like, each of the images has a detailed description, and that description is partly biological, but partly emotional. And then we have text in between, and we have a video wall. And I think that the experience of watching or like going into this exhibition and seeing these huge prints and the textures and everything, it's so different than just scrolling and skipping through images online in a very fast pace. And therefore, um, even though the instant gratification sometimes on the social media is very nice, my real purpose lies into exhibitions, and maybe the accompanying book. But creating a whole picture, a whole story with an exhibition is, I think, brilliant.
I couldn't agree more. I think it's a pure way of people experiencing and also giving presentations, having your images shown on a big screen, and you, the photographer, are talking about these images, and it's a really wonderful experience. It's certainly my favorite, for watching photographers work. But I was interested in talking about moving away from certain styles and being known for certain styles. And I watched an interview you did back in 2018. You were taking some beautiful images of trees, all of these multi-layered, multi-exposure shots of these trees that are really stunning. And how is the project going? Are you still doing it? Is there an end game in mind? We'd be great if we can put some links up to some of the shots that you've taken so far. It would be really interesting to find out where we can see more of this work, because it really stood out for me. I loved it a lot.
I mean, like I think I started just because, and this is what always happens in nature. You feel something, you see something, and you are not able to capture it in a way. And of course, I've been using multi exposures even back in slide time, so that has been something that has been part of my work for a very long time. But I've used it quite differently. I started off with using it as a means of doing different layers of sharpness in flowers and like solving technical problems that the camera has in a way, with this limited field or depth of field, and then I moved on to using it more creative, which is quite often used these days. I mean, like multi-exposure has become the new filters in a way. um, but I remember that when I was, I mean, like I love spring, I love every season, but I mean, of course, after winter, and I love winter, but spring is somehow still very special to me. And when all the trees are blooming, and I wasn't able to capture this kind of feeling and this the situation in a single shot. I've been trying so many different ways, and I've never felt anything when looking at these pictures. They were nice, maybe even very nice, but didn't feel right in a way. And then I tried with some multi exposures in different ways, and then uh, uh, I tried like as many exposures as I could do, 10 exposures with my Nikon camera, and
You hadn't done this before?
I hadn't done this before. I mean, like, I think I probably have done maximum of 3 to 4 exposures at once. And I've never done, I mean, like, I know, of course, I did know the work of Freeman Patterson, which I mean, like, he has been using, I don't know, 40 exposures or 50 in analog times. But I'm not so technical, I'm like, I remember back in the days when you had to do slide film, and already 3 exposures were quite challenging when you had to calculate the time that you had to expose the image. And of course, in digital, it's much easier because the camera does it for you. But I still had never tried this multi exposure thing. And so I tried it with the one tree, and I must say, I think already the second try was. I mean, I saw this on the back screen, and I thought, wow, this is so amazing. I'm like, probably some of these situations when you're completely surprised by what you've tried. And
Yeah, because 99% of the time is the other way around.
true, true. But I'm like, sometimes, I mean, sometimes I hate so much that the camera is limiting me in what I see because the sensor is just not capable of doing this. But on the other hand, I love how the camera is able to transform things that I would never see with my eyes. And so using this ability of the camera to add light and to combine different things, it's brilliant. And I mean, like, I've been just, yeah, I mean, like, going on with a series since, and I've been still, I mean, like, whenever I see a perfect tree that is perfect for that, I'm still doing that. And I'm not having an idea of publishing a book with all these images because I think it's going to be too boring. Um, but I'm using them in my idea that I had so many years. I think it's more an really, I mean, they belong into my whole oeuvre of images that are taking my emotions to something that I want to convey to the audience. And those will be part of a publication, that's for sure.
Oh, that's fabulous. I absolutely love them. Truly spectacular. And for me, you really get the feel of the tree from these images. So we're going to slowly start to wrap this up. I've got a few more questions. So you're the vice president of the GDT, right? That's the Gesellschaft Deutsche Tierfotografen.
No, not anymore. We have renamed ourselves. So it's a Gesellschaft für Naturfotografie. So it's really properly named. Now it's really the German Association for Nature Photography. Because like Tierfotografen was animal photography.
And how long have you been doing this?
Since 2007. So it's my life, kind of my lifetime. I always say, if you are once involved, you never be able to step out. I had a very short break of 3 years when I was not in the board, but I still was responsible for many organizational things, and then I went back to the board as a vice president. The beauty of that job is that you can move something. The down the downside is that you um, it's much easier to develop things for the association or for the society than for yourself. So I think if you are not involved in voluntary work, and it's a lot of voluntary work, and it takes a lot of energy, and it takes a lot of your ideas and your time, and so on. So if you are involved in something like that, you really can move something on the whole level of nature photography, which I find great. But you should be aware that you won't have time to develop your own as much.
And it sounds like you're spending so much time doing it. It comes back to that, finding that balance between office work and field time.
Definitely.
And this time perhaps is not the fairest comparison, but obviously Corona has given you a decent amount of time to photograph. But are you otherwise very disciplined and turning off your computer and going out and photographing as much as you can?
Actually, not at all. Of course, everybody has different reasons for it. And right now, I'm at my parents' place, like my birthplace, in the north of Germany, and I've been here with very few breaks since the mid of April. And here, I've always been photographing here. As soon as I'm back in Potsdam, and I don't want to blame Potsdam, but Potsdam and the surrounding, because it's close to Berlin and it's very inhabited. All the lakes and everything. It's not that there's not nature. I think that Berlin is one of the greenest cities, of course. And Potsdam is very green and has a lot of water, but it's not as wild and pure and empty as the north of Germany. And I've never been really intensive photographing in Potsdam region. I've always been traveling to my parents' place to take photos. And of course, if you are busy on deadlines and constantly doing some things, then you are in your office, and I don't find any end. I you work during the day because you think you should do that, but then I'm definitely an owl, so I like to work in the nights. So usually the whole day is spent with, I have to work, I have to work, I have to work, and then you are getting calls, and somebody wants to have this opinion and so on. And then just in the evening, when everybody else is just enjoying Netflix or whatever, then I can start to work and probably do something. And I remember I had years, especially with Luz and the preparations and GDT and my magazine, or our magazine, um, when I started the computer at 9 in the morning and I turned it off at 1 or 2, without a lot of, without much interruption in between. And um, I don't want to have this, so I'm definitely thinking of moving back north, and having a better life work balance, in a way of being able to do work during the day, but then go out in the field whenever it's possible.
This story is
So,
really great to hear, and thank you for sharing it honestly, because I myself and many other photographers or people listening to this will suffer with this. Of course, we should be out in the field more, we should be doing this and honing our craft, but there seems to be such a draw to being in the office and writing proposals and doing social media posts. But of course, photography
yes.
is a craft that needs attention all the time. If I don't pick up my camera for a couple of weeks, you start to lose familiarity with it. It'd be like if you play guitar and you didn't practice your scales for a few weeks, you'd be rusty. Yes. So of course it's really important to continue to photograph all the time.
Yeah, and even if your photography of every day is not really serving a purpose or anything. It's more that you are really staying focused on what's around you and practicing your craft. And I think that's quite important, because the stories develop from that. That you are. I mean, like I remember when I wrote my first how-to book about nature photography. I said you have more chances of doing a great picture if you are doing more. And in the end, it comes to that. If you are doing more, you end up with more great stuff. So I'm like, of course, I've been in the past years when I had very, very limited time of spending time in the field. I mean, honestly, sometimes it was 3, 4 weekends a year that I really intensively spent outside, apart from a few days or evenings. But like really focused weekends, or sometimes a week of travel or something. But um, I perfected the craft of being so on point during that very short amount of time that I came back home with quite a lot of new images, just because I was so focused and so hungry in a way, of images. And right now it feels good, that it's not the case anymore, that I'm more loose and can just take the time.
So before we started this podcast, we had a brief conversation, and I think it'd be important to talk about some of the things we mentioned, because the direction of this podcast has moved much more towards conversations about conservation. But I thought it'd be really good to share some of your thoughts. And I think there's this pressure on nature photographers, that your images have to save the world and they have to create campaigns for change. But of course, not everybody can do that. I remember hearing Noam Chomsky talk about activism, and he said it's something that you can't really dip your toe in. You really have to go for it in full force. But not everybody has that burning passion inside them, and particularly not with their photography. So I wondered how you deal with this, with your work, with being a nature photographer, and if you felt any pressure and for your work to affect positive environmental change.
Yeah, I mean, like, I think it's a typical question, no? I mean, like, there's two typical questions, like, what was the most serious situation you ever had?
Yes.
Um, and then the second is, what do you want to do with your photography? Like, what do you want to change? And I think one has to admit, if there is not the case. I mean, like, if this is not the case, I think there's way too many nature photographers claiming to be conservation photographers these days, just because it's kind of a fashion to do this these days. And I always have the feeling that it's an excuse for them to travel to Antarctica to make the 100,000 images of penguins and say, "Oh yes, I'm conservation photography because penguins are threatened." And I think most of the times it's not true, because if you're not campaigning, if you're not really moving something with your images, if you are not using them for change, then you're not a conservation photographer. um, and I think one has to admit that this is not the case when you are doing just beautiful work. And I'm just doing work that is very important to me. I'm really my biggest like my aim when I'm photographing is never to change the world. It's to touch people, and if I touch people and this produces something, then it's okay. um, I I think I wouldn't say that I'm completely non-political, because I am. I'm caring for a lot of things that happen in nature, and really the loss of habitats, and especially the diversity of animals on our planet. And I'm like, I can help these issues as a magazine editor, for example, because I can highlight these stories and highlight these people. Uh, but I think anyway that we are playing much, I mean, like, too much in our own community. Uh, this is always when we have our festival. It's like people like that are already converted, um, like praying to people that are converted already. So in a way, we need to reach other people, and this is what photographers against wildlife crime or John MacArthur or other people have done in the past. These are for me really people that move something with their photography. But we do like small regional projects with our GDT groups where we educate normal people in presentations, and we do have, next to the nice and beautiful and informational pictures, we do have some critical voices, and we do some footage of critical stuff, but it's not the core of my work. And I think one really shouldn't feel threatened if it's not, because it comes either natural because you are really having an aim and you really want to do something about a topic, or you won't. And I think that all this artificial claiming of doing something for it, yeah, it really serves as an excuse. And honestly, when you see this corona, and we touched briefly about this regional work that many people had to focus now on being thrown back into their local environments and maybe rediscovering their local environments and seeing that there is something waiting for them that they didn't expect because they used to be traveling all the time. And you see, it's much more sustainable to focus on small stories in your own backyard. Not only because you know the light better and you know the region better and you can develop something from there, but because there are stories to be told from your local environment as well. And if everybody does that with photographers worldwide, then everything is covered anyway. And then there's no excuse for a carbon footprint and enormous traveling with an airplane.
Yeah, that's right. I mean, it would be fun, but I don't really have a great desire to go and photograph polar bears in the Arctic or tigers in India. There are much people better placed to do that and have been doing it and would do a better job than I could even imagine. So in terms of taking pictures of foxes, they're just around the corner from my house. And I think you're right, photographing locally, my feeling is, and my mission really is, how do we get people to care about elephants, tigers, polar bears, if they don't care about animals that are on their doorstep? And the amount of times that I've shown people my work and, they're surprised the amount of amazing encounters that I've seen. And this stuff is happening under people's noses on their doorsteps week in, week out. And these are the important stories to tell, to get people connected, to get people enthused locally.
Yeah, and I mean, of course, like let the Indian photographers photograph the animals in India, and invite them to publish in your magazines. I mean, like, why do we need a European photographer covering the elephants or the tigers? I'm like, honestly, I can understand that there's an a joy in seeing these places. I can completely understand, and we all have fernweh, and we all sometimes love to travel and see other places. But I think really we honestly should ask ourselves if we should start treating this whole travel photography business a little bit different, and concentrating more on involving local photographers from all over the world in our media and representation, and not only us as the only ones who are capable of photographing these animals. And I think we have to find other ways to enjoy nature without traveling too much.
And I couldn't agree more, and it's brilliant advice. And on advice, I get a lot of messages from people talking about how do you make a living from being a nature photographer? How do you become professional? Particularly now, it's a really tough time. What would be your advice to a young person or someone who wants to transition from a career, and not necessarily a photographer? It could be a presenter or somebody wanting to get into nature as a communicator or videographer. Where do they start, and how do they go about getting recognition and really making a go of it?
I think the first most important thing is passion, and if you are passionate about something, then a success will come. It's easy to say. I'm receiving a lot of questions of people who telling me or asking me, how do I make it? How it's possible. And I'm sure you have interviewed so many people, and everybody has a different way of doing it. I would say most important is passion, then diversify, because you will never be able to live off one idea, but really having multiple different kind of little income sorts from photography is very important. And what helped me is we haven't covered this, but collaboration with other photographers and with associations. I've been all my life working voluntary, and through my voluntary work, there have been chances of meeting people and joining projects. So if you are a loner, you will probably be able to do something if you are really good in something, and if you do the real and good marketing, and if somebody recognizes you. But it's so much more easier, I think, if you are in a group of people and get to know people, start to network, and find the right people, maybe to collaborate on projects where you are not able to handle all the aspects by yourself, and then going step by step. But the most important thing is, if you're not passionate and if you have no inspiration, then you can do whatever you want. You won't be successful.
Thank you so much, Sandra. I know we talked about you have some new book ideas, but do you have a 10-year plan, or what can we expect in the coming years?
I see a business question. No, I have no 10-year plan, but I'm really, as I said, I want to focus on books and exhibitions, and I will definitely come up with something over the next years. Maybe already this year if I'm managing and not only exploring my time in the garden. But I'm definitely on to several projects at once, and whatever comes. I mean, like my long time plan was always to have a gallery here in my local surrounding, to have a gallery in the garden, and to really focus on people enjoying the local beauty, and maybe this will happen someday, but we'll see.
Well, that sounds like a brilliant dream to have, and I'll definitely visit. I'll come and visit your gallery in the garden. So let me know.
Yes. You get a coffee for sure.
I can't wait. Thank you so much again. We'll put everything, all the links to your work, and we'll of course direct people to Luz if they're lucky enough to get one of the remaining 500 copies. And yeah, I can't wait to see more of your work in the future, and there's loads more we can talk about. So we'll have to get you back on, and thanks so much again.
Sure. Thank you again. It was very pleasurable to talk to you.
Thanks so much to Sandra for her time and for giving such a fascinating insight into her philosophy and working practices. We continued the conversation off air for a short while, and in many ways I wish we'd carried on recording. This was funny because Sandra mentioned my interviews are too short for the long car journeys that she embarks on, so next time we're ever on, we'll do a 3-hour epic special. What do you think? In the meantime, you can find out more about her on Facebook, Twitter and Instagram, where she's pretty active. All the links for this are on her page on the podcast section of my website. So if you don't follow it already, I really suggest you do so now. There are also some great interviews. Just Google her name. That's what I did for a lot of the research for this interview, both written and on YouTube. So yeah, head over there to find out more about her there too. So as we slowly come out of lockdown, I should let you know about new workshops I'm running on Hampstead Heath. Good time to get back out and get involved with nature and with a camera. Head to the workshop section of my website. We have availability throughout autumn and winter, which of course is such a great time for photographing the stunning colours on the heath. I also have new additions to my shop. Firstly, A5 prints. I've opened up a whole new section of smaller prints, which can make a lovely and affordable gift. So To find out more about that, you can head over to my shop. It's matthewmoranshop.com, and you'll find them in the open print section. I'm also offering online mentoring and portfolio reviews for those interested in taking their photography to a new level. And this could mean preparing an edit for a picture library, producing a book, however big or small, or creating a portfolio set of prints. Again, have a look at my shop for more information about that, and get in touch if you have any questions. Thanks again for listening. Stay tuned for the next episode coming in August. All the best.